Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. Some of you have been walking around like shadows of yourselves, folding in your brilliance, dimming your light, choking on your truth, just so somebody else can feel a little more comfortable in your presence. You've been shrinking, not because you're weak, but because you were taught that being small made you lovable. And I'm here to tell you right now, you were lied to. You were not born to be palatable. You were born to be powerful. You were not sent here to play quiet so people won't be intimidated. You were sent here to stand bold so that your very presence challenges the room to rise. But somewhere along the way, somebody convinced you that being liked was more important than being real, and you believed them. You learned to hide your ideas so others wouldn't call you arrogant. You downplayed your ambition so your partner wouldn't feel threatened. You bit your tongue when your soul was screaming just to keep the peace. But peace is not silence. Peace is truth. Peace is living in full alignment with who you really are. Let me ask you this: who are you really when nobody's watching? Are you the version you rehearse for approval, or the one that exists when you stop auditioning? See, too many of us have been performing in relationships, friendships, jobs, even families. You became the caretaker, the fixer, the peacemaker, the one who never asks for much, the one who always says, "I'm fine," when you're breaking inside. And now you're exhausted, not because life is hard, but because pretending to be small takes more energy than standing in your full size. But here's what they don't tell you: your healing begins when you stop apologizing for your power. I know they called you too much, too loud, too sensitive, too ambitious, too intense. I know, but what they were really saying is, "You're too real for my comfort zone." That's not your burden to carry. You are not too much. You've just been surrounded by people who are too little to handle your full spirit. And guess what? That's okay. You're not for everyone, and that's a blessing. Listen to me, you don't need to water yourself down to be accepted by people who were never meant to walk your path. Your purpose does not require consensus. Your destiny is not a democracy. Not everybody gets a vote. Some of the people clapping for you in public are hoping for your downfall in private. And some of the people you've been bending over backwards to please couldn't even tell you your favorite color because they never took the time to see you. You become a stranger to yourself trying to become familiar to others. But it stops now. You hear me? From this moment on, I want you to remember, you do not have to shrink to fit into spaces you've outgrown. You don't have to tolerate shallow love, small talk, or safe dreams. You were not created to live at the level of someone else's comfort. You are not ice cream, you are fire. You weren't made to cool people down, you were made to light the way. So let them call you too much, too real, too bold, too passionate. That's their lens, not your limit. Because the truth is, most people who tell you to dim your light are just afraid they'll have to face the shadows of their own unlit lives. You don't belong in rooms where silence is mistaken for peace. You don't belong in circles where your dreams are mocked. You don't belong in relationships that demand your silence, your smallness, your surrender just to survive. Let me ask you something real. What would your life look like if you stopped editing yourself for approval? What if you spoke your mind fully, loved out loud, dreamed with fire, moved like you knew you were already chosen? Would you lose some people? Yeah. Would you make some people uncomfortable? Definitely. Would you finally feel free? Absolutely. You see, greatness will always offend mediocrity. Light will always irritate darkness. Growth will always disrupt stagnation. That's just the cost of elevation. And if you're serious about evolving, then you've got to accept that not everybody can go with you. Let them fall off. Let them misunderstand you. Let them walk away, because real ones, the people meant for you, will never require you to be less to be loved. They won't panic when you speak your truth. They won't wither when you stand in your confidence. They'll see your fire and add to it, not try to put it out. You know what's crazy? Some of y'all are praying for elevation while clinging to people and places that require your stagnation. That's like asking God for wings while refusing to leave the cage. You say you want to be successful, but you're still surrounding yourself with energy that doubts you. You say you want real love, but you keep performing for approval, hiding your boundaries and pretending to be easy to love. You say you want peace, but you've become addicted to being needed more than being known. Let me say this to you straight. If your presence demands your performance, you are not in a relationship, you're in a role, and you deserve more than an audience. You deserve alignment. This life you've got, it's yours, not theirs, yours. You're the main character, not the extra, not the supporting cast. And if people can't handle that, let them walk, let them whisper, let them misjudge you. That's their business. Your business is becoming the boldest, fullest version of yourself. You will lose people when you grow, but you will also find yourself. And when you finally meet that version of you, the unshaken, unshrinking, unbothered version, you'll realize something powerful. You were never too much. You were just too true for people living in lies. You were never hard to love. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't recognize real love because they've never given it to themselves. So stop asking for permission to be who you are. Stop seeking applause from people who don't even clap for themselves. Stop minimizing your magic to be digestible. Let them choke. Yeah, I said it. Let them choke on your truth, your light, your glory, your rise, because the ones who can't handle your presence were never worthy of your future. Stop shrinking. This world doesn't need more agreeable, predictable, likable ghosts of once potential people. It needs you, the loud you, the soft you, the praying you, the angry you, the dreaming you, the unstoppable you. Don't dim that. Don't dress it up for validation. Don't dilute it for comfort. Walk in it. Because let me remind you, people-pleasing is just a slow form of self-betrayal. Every time you bite your tongue when your heart is bleeding, every time you say yes when your soul is screaming no, every time you laugh to keep from crying, you're teaching yourself that you don't matter, but you do. You do. You matter even when they walk away. You matter even when you outgrow them. You matter even when they say you've changed. Good. Change. Evolve. Grow. Outshine. Outdream, outlive the version of you they thought would always play small. Because the truth is, staying small doesn't save you. It kills you slowly, bit by bit, smile by fake smile, sacrifice by unspoken desire. You weren't sent here to be liked. You were sent here to leave something behind, a legacy, a truth, a roar. And you cannot do that when you're whispering. So from this moment forward, I want you to walk different, talk different, move different. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't owe anyone an apology for growing into your calling. You are allowed to outgrow people who had the chance to grow with you, but chose to stay small. Let them stay where they're comfortable. You go where you're called, because comfort never made history. Playing small never built empires. Shrinking never saved souls. And people-pleasing never fulfilled a single destiny. You are not for everyone. And that's exactly the point. You're for the ones who will feel your truth and rise. You're for the ones who will hear your voice and remember their own. You're for the ones who will say, thank God she didn't shrink, or I would have never grown. So be loud, be fire, be truth, be light, be inconvenient, be undeniable, be all of it. And never again shrink yourself just to be liked. Because you're not for everyone, but you are everything to the ones who see you, love you, and rise with you. So rise, queen, rise, king. Let the world adjust. There comes a moment in every life when you have to decide, are you going to keep folding your wings to sit inside cages built by other people's fear, or are you finally going to fly like you were created to? Because the longer you choose comfort over courage, the longer you remain a watered-down version of what you were meant to be. You weren't born to fit a script written by the insecure. You were born to author your own volume, chapter by bold chapter, mistake by mighty mistake, growth by unapologetic growth. Some of the people you're begging to stay would be the very ones holding the scissors if your success were hanging by a thread. Understand this, acceptance bought with self-abandonment is spiritual bankruptcy. And don't confuse loyalty with imprisonment. You don't owe longevity to any relationship that starves your voice. Time is not a reason to stay where your soul has died. Years invested don't justify a future forfeited. If it's robbing you of your joy, your vision, your wholeness, it's too expensive. They might have called you difficult, but difficulty is subjective. What they really meant was you can't be controlled. And that's the most dangerous thing in any room. A person who knows who they are and refuses to negotiate it. Be that person. Walk into rooms with the full weight of your truth. Speak with conviction, not to convince, but because the truth demands a voice. Dress like a statement, not an apology. Carry yourself like your spirit has history with greatness, because it does. See, the people who are for you will never flinch at your shine. They won't ask you to speak softer, dream smaller, or live simpler. They'll pull up a seat, not because you asked them to, but because they recognize the table you bring. You've been pouring into empty wells, apologizing for being a full cup in a desert of insecurity. But the thirsty will never tell you you're too much. Only the drowning will. And their discomfort is not your responsibility. Let them project. Let them misunderstand. Let them make you the villain in stories they told themselves. Because your growth threatened their comfort. That's part of walking in truth. Being willing to be misunderstood by those who lack the courage to understand themselves. You don't need a fan base. You need alignment. Stop chasing applause and start chasing alignment. Applause is loud but fleeting. Alignment is quiet but eternal. When you move in alignment, the wrong ones fall off and the right ones show up without being summoned. Because truth calls trial. And let's talk about your voice. That thing you keep locking away like it's dangerous. It is dangerous. It disturbs false peace. It wakes the sleeping. It rattles chains. That's why they taught you to whisper, because they were afraid of what might happen if you ever realized your voice could move mountains. So speak anyway. Speak when your hands shake. Speak when your knees buckle. Speak when the room looks too grand, too rigid, too cold, because silence might feel safer, but it's a slow death. And your voice is proof that your spirit has not surrendered. You've spent too long being careful, but careful doesn't change the world. Careful doesn't break curses. Careful doesn't build legacies. Bold does. Raw does. Real does. It's time to stop diluting your genius to comfort egos that have no intention of growing with you. Let them go. Let them talk. Let them watch you from the distance they chose when they couldn't handle your evolution. Because if you stay small long enough, the day will come when your reflection won't recognize you. You'll look in the mirror and see the remnants of a soul that never got to breathe. And that is a tragedy more devastating than any goodbye. So today, make a decision, not a hope, a decision that you will never again make yourself less for love. That you will never again shrink in the presence of those who refuse to rise, that you will never again keep peace at the cost of your purpose, because this world needs what you've buried, that laugh, that gift, that genius, that message, that walk, that presence, that fire. Somewhere out there, a younger version of you is watching, praying that you don't quit, praying that you finally choose yourself, praying that you set the kind of example that makes choosing truth look like power instead of pain. Make her proud. Make him proud. Because shrinking might get you liked, but only rising will get you free. You weren't created to orbit around other people's comfort. You were designed to take up space, real unapologetic sacred space. And let me tell you what no one dared to. The version of you that plays nice, agrees blindly, nods through injustice, sacrifices your needs, silences your brilliance. That version may earn temporary approval, but it will cost you everything that actually matters. Approval is cheap when authenticity is expensive. Because here's the truth. Not everyone is meant to witness your evolution. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your becoming. Some people were only meant for your past, not your platform. You've outgrown people who still see you through outdated frames. They speak to who you were, not who you're becoming. So stop giving them the power to narrate your story from a chapter you've already closed. You're not responsible for making old characters feel relevant in your new plotline. Some connections feel like loyalty, but they're really just anchors tied to a version of you that was never allowed to rise. And what you call loyalty might actually be emotional stagnation in disguise. Stop mistaking proximity for purpose. Just because someone has been in your life for years doesn't mean they have the capacity to handle your rise. Familiarity is not the same as alignment. Some of the people you're loyal to are only loyal to your limitation. They don't celebrate your growth. They tolerate. They don't support your change. They survive it. They don't elevate your soul. They drain it. And still you stay. Why? Because you fear being alone more than being unseen. But let me ask you this. Is it really loneliness if you finally meet yourself? Because there is a version of you on the other side of goodbye who is braver, louder, freer. She laughs from her belly. He walks without second guessing. They speak in full volume. That version isn't wondering who will stay. They're wondering how they ever tolerated so much less. You've been feeding relationships that would starve you if the tables turned, and you're still waiting for them to become what they've already proven they're not. That's not hope, that's denial with a prettier name. But here's the deal. Clarity comes with movement. The more you walk in truth, the more the fog clears. And yes, people will leave, but peace will arrive. And when peace finally walks in, you'll realize you were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong people. So stop rehearsing your value to people who aren't even listening. Stop seeking depth from the shallow. Stop opening up to those who weaponize your vulnerability. You are not hard to love. You are just no longer willing to shrink for crumbs. Because here's the plot twist. You were never rejected. You were redirected. Every time someone pulled away when you stood in your truth, it was life clearing the space for something real to walk in. Every time you were too much, you were being prepared for a place where much is the minimum. And when that space finally arrives, that job, that love, that purpose-driven circle, it will not require your translation. You won't have to dumb yourself down. You won't have to question your worth. You'll speak and be heard. You'll show up and be embraced. You'll take up space and they'll make more for you. That's how you'll know, because authentic alignment never feels like suffocation. It feels like breathing again. You've tried surviving by molding, minimizing, mirroring, hoping one day you'd be seen. But you can't be seen when you're hiding inside somebody else's expectations. You can't be known when you're only showing fragments. You can't be loved when you're not even you. And let's stop pretending this isn't costing you. It's costing your creativity. It's costing your confidence. It's costing your calling. And you know it. You felt the weight of the words you never said. You've tasted the bitterness of dreams deferred to appease people who couldn't carry them with you. You've watched your own fire flicker because you kept handing your matches to those who feared the light. But that chapter, it ends today. This is the moment you stop trading clarity for confusion. This is the hour you return to yourself fully, loudly, without shame, because your liberation doesn't begin with applause. It begins with truth. Not everyone will clap when you come home to yourself. Not everyone will celebrate your boundaries. Not everyone will honor the version of you that no longer begs to belong. But you will. And that's where freedom lives. When you finally decide that being yourself is worth more than being liked. When you finally stop asking, will they stay? And start asking, am I true? When you finally walk away from anything that teaches you to love others more than you love your own soul, that's when everything changes. That's when you shift from survival to sovereignty, from shrinking to standing, from tolerated to chosen. And here's what they don't want you to know. The moment you stop shrinking, your very existence becomes a revolution, a rebellion against smallness, a declaration that you're not for everyone. And you don't have to be, because you weren't made to blend. You were made to blade. When you stop apologizing for your truth, you start attracting what's actually meant for your life. You stop chasing people who confuse your presence for convenience. You stop auditioning for rooms that demand silence over substance. You stop entertaining relationships where loyalty only runs one way, yours. Because love in its realest form doesn't demand a disguise. It doesn't ask you to mute your intuition, to soften your edges, to bury your conviction. Real love in friendship, in romance, in purpose, invites the whole you, not a filtered version. If they only love your silence, they were never worthy of your voice. If they only value you when you're convenient, they were never ready for your consistency. If they only stay when you're easy to understand, they're not prepared for the layers that make you human. You've been sitting at tables that feed your fears instead of your future. They laugh with you, but not for you. They cheer, but never loudly. They listen, but never deeply. And still, you stayed because you mistook proximity for connection. But true connection doesn't leave you empty after every interaction. It doesn't require posturing. It doesn't punish you for growing. True connection challenges and cherishes you at the same time. You've done enough shapeshift. You've adjusted your volume, toned down your vision, made yourself digestible, and all for what? A seat at tables where your presence is tolerated, but your purpose is ignored. No more. You have the right to outgrow people without resentment. You have the right to redefine your boundaries without explanation. You have the right to be complex, to be layered, to evolve, even when it confuses those who thought they had you figured out. Because you're not a template, you're not a prototype, you're not a past version in permanent display. You are movement. You are transformation. You are becoming every day, every breath, every decision. And yes, the world will resist that because people feel safest when they can predict you, when they can categorize you, file you away, label you as the nice one, the helper, the non-threatening one. But the moment you step out of that assigned role, the moment you stop performing and start proclaiming, they will call it rebellion. They'll say you've changed, that you're cold, that you're selfish. But let them talk, because your healing will always look like rebellion to those who benefited from your brokenness. Let them feel uncomfortable. That's not your burden. Your job isn't to make others feel safe by sacrificing your own freedom. Your job is to live fully, even when it makes others squirm. And here's the truth. Not everyone is supposed to understand your journey. Some people were only meant to be part of your origin story, not your destiny. So stop dragging the unprepared into spaces that require courage they've never built. Your evolution will cost you your comfort zone. Your growth will cost you your victim narrative. Your rise will cost you some invitations. And that's the price of becoming. But what you gain is sacred. What you gain is yourself. You gain nights where your peace isn't interrupted by internal battles. You gain mornings where your dreams aren't haunted by someone else's doubt. You gain friendships that feel like mirrors and maps, not traps. You see, once you taste alignment, chaos stops tasting like home. Once you witness what it feels like to be seen without performing, heard without rehearsing, loved without folding, you will never go back to counterfeit comfort. You are not responsible for explaining your evolution to people committed to misunderstanding it. If they don't ask, they're not ready. If they judge, they've already decided. And if they walk, they were never truly standing with you to begin with. Let them leave, not as a punishment, but as a permission slip for both of you to grow. Because when you start to walk in your truth, it won't just change your relationships, it will reset your entire life. You'll stop begging for things that are already inside you. You'll stop chasing validation that fades by morning. You'll stop searching for home in hearts that were never built to hold yours. Instead, you'll build, you'll rise, you'll attract. The spaces you once felt too big for will start to feel like old shoes. Memories of movement, but no longer fit for the road ahead. And this road, this new road, won't be smooth, but it will be real. There will be days when silence feels louder than applause. Nights when solitude stretches longer than the love you once knew. But stay the course, because clarity doesn't always feel like comfort. Sometimes it feels like loss before it looks like light. Don't mistake the pruning for punishment. When life removes what no longer serves you, it's not to harm you, it's to prepare you. You've been carrying too much weight from people who never intended to walk with you to the finish line. You've been shrinking not because you lack potential, but because you've been trying to fit through doors that weren't made for your wingspan. But now, It's time to open your doors, doors that don't require bending or begging, doors that respond to your full name, your full truth, your full presence. Let the world adjust to your expansion. It's not your job to apologize for growth that others refuse to pursue. Your job is to rise every single day without guilt, without shame, without fear, because once you realize that shrinking doesn't make you safe, it just makes you invisible. You will never again choose quiet over freedom. You know what happens when you stop folding yourself into a shape that fits inside someone else's idea of who you're supposed to be. You stop suffocating. You stop waking up with that low-grade ache that something is missing. You stop walking through life with your shoulders hunched, your voice shaky, your worth negotiated. You stop performing for people who wouldn't recognize your truth, even if it stood right in front of them with a spotlight and a microphone. And finally, you breathe without fear of being too much, because being fully yourself is not arrogance, it's alignment. You stop tiptoeing around your potential. You stop censoring your spirit to match their capacity. You stop labeling your dreams as unrealistic just because they outstretch the imagination of people who've never dared to want more. You stop being quiet in the presence of mediocrity just to avoid the glare of envy. Let me tell you, it's not your job to play small so others can feel tall. You were never meant to be the backdrop to someone else's spotlight. You are not a placeholder. You are not a stand-in for the safer version of yourself. You are the lead. You are the movement. You are the sound and the fury and the flame. And from now on, you walk like it. Walk like the answer to your own prayers. Walk like you've already been chosen. Walk like you're carrying a legacy that won't wait for approval to begin, because that's exactly what you are. No one tells you that choosing yourself will cost you your old life. The roles, the routines, the relationships, they were built around the version of you that was scared, that was silent, that was soft-spoken, not by nature, but by conditioning. So when you rise, you break the very foundation they used to feel safe, and it will make them uncomfortable. They'll say you've changed, and you have, because evolution is not a personality trait, it's survival. You were never meant to stay still. You were meant to grow teeth, grow roots, grow wings, all at once if needed, because this life doesn't reward those who wait quietly in corners. It moves for those who move themselves. If you want peace, you'll have to fight for it. If you want freedom, you'll have to disappoint a few people. If you want power, you'll have to stop asking for permission to take up space. There is no throne built for someone still apologizing for the seat they're in. You want to live fully? Then be willing to disappoint anyone who prefers your silence over your sovereignty. Don't just leave the rooms that shrink you. Burn the script they handed you at the door. The one that told you to smile even when you're cracking. The one that told you ambition is dangerous, that softness is weakness, that independence makes you undesirable. Lies. Softness is power that doesn't scream. Ambition is purpose on a mission. Independence is love that refuses to be imprisoned. You can be fire and comfort. You can be bold and kind. You can be loyal without being leashed. You can be loving and still walk away when the love costs your identity. That balance, that wholeness, that's your birthright. And anyone who demands less from you, whether they come dressed as friend, family, lover, boss, or mentor, does not belong in your next chapter. Don't carry characters into your future who were only written for the prologue. Release them. Release the guilt. Release the fear of being alone. Because solitude and truth is far more sacred than company and compromise. You have to understand something. You are a once-in-a-generation soul. Your story, your scars, your spirit, they're a combination that has never existed before and will never exist again. So stop playing like you're replaceable. You are the blueprint someone else is praying to become. You are the answer someone else is begging God to find. You are the sign, the shift, the spark someone else has been waiting for. But you can't be any of that if you keep hiding, if you keep silencing yourself in rooms where your voice was meant to shatter walls, if you keep walking with your head down just to avoid the weight of other people's opinions. They don't know you like you know you. They don't see the fire you fought to keep alive. They don't know the night you bled in silence only to show up the next day with a smile stitched to your face. But you know, and you don't need their applause to keep going, because now you've remembered you are not for everyone. You were not born to be soft-spoken background noise. You were not born to be muted so others could be loud. You were not created to shrink into palatable packages. You were made to be fully experienced, not just partially accepted. So let them leave. Let them be confused. Let them question your glow. You've got better things to do than manage other people's discomfort with your growth. You got mountains to move, kingdoms to build, legacies to ignite, and most importantly, yourself to become. You're not who you used to be, and that's something to celebrate, not conceal from this moment forward. Let your presence be a declaration. I will no longer beg for space in rooms. I was born to redesign. You don't need validation from people who lack vision. You don't need love that comes with a leash. You don't need circles that shrink when you succeed. You need fire. You need truth. You need alignment. And the most radical world-shifting thing you can do is finally stand in all of who you are, without apology, without edit, without fear. Not everyone will get it, but the right ones will rise to meet you. And when they do, you'll realize you never needed to shrink. You only needed to show up. And now you have.